Welcome, everyone. You are listening to They Might Be Self-Aware. This is episode 29, and I am Hunter Powers, joined by
Daniel Bishop, who isn't just self-aware, he also might not even be the person that you're talking to, interviewing, or hiring. Do you know what I'm talking about, Hunter?
This is way too early in the show for like that level of...
We're starting strong, and we're getting more strong.
It's going to be a good one, folks.
Yep.
What are we even talking about this episode?
Well, you and I were talking earlier in previous episodes, which you should listen to and subscribe and like. We usually save that for the end, but I'm starting off strong. Today, we talked about cheating in schools, people using AI, LLMs to pass exams that maybe they aren't really qualified to pass. Mm-hmm. What about that in the real world, in job interviews and applications and the job itself after the fact? We're going to discuss, is it cheating something you shouldn't do? Or is it just the future of hiring and working? And what happens if that person that you hired isn't even the person who shows up to do the job?
It's all up next, folks, because you are listening to
They Might Be Self-Aware.
You've applied for jobs before, right? Like you've been through that process.
I have. The awful, awful process of applying for jobs.
There's this account on TikTok where the guy applies for jobs where he has zero competency in the area. And then he has a program that listens to the interview and suggests answers to all of the questions. And these are in usually deep technical fields. And so he sits there, and as they ask the question, he has some good filler stuff where he's like, that is an excellent question. And I was thinking that you might ask something like that question. And then it spits out the answer and he recites it back. I was watching one recently where they were interviewing him about Azure, Microsoft's server cloud, and asking lots of specifics about different services.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yes, the key store value service. I'd like to create an index first. And it was, and the interviewer was like, wow, yeah, that's really good. You seem to really know your stuff. But I guess the question is how valid is it to leverage AI as part of the job application, as part of the interview process? We were talking about a little bit about AI cheating in general last time. Is it just more cheating, or is it something else?
I mean, it smacks of cheating. And as someone who has done hiring and will be doing hiring in the future, it's really, really worrisome to think the person that I hire might not actually have any real underlying expertise, the thing that we're trying to hire for. So it becomes a tougher challenge. How do I actually know that this person knows anything, especially if they could be reading, just ChatGPT responses or something along those lines? I don't know what the answer is yet. It probably... So, okay.
I think there's probably a line.
In the olden days, you bring in a physical resume to a place and you give them a firm handshake and they say, welcome to the team, and you start working at the factory,
right,
and then you do that for
Bishop.
40 years, you get your gold watch, you retire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have to do a return to that? Because if you could have an overlay on your screen that you're just reading the prompt off of, you can fake being a lot more competent than you are. Now, occasionally you might still be able to trip up a model and thus the person just reading the stuff from the model. But I think it's extremely feasible that we could get to a point one step farther than what you just did. The guy who's going on the calls and reading these, automate that. Get a AI chatbot version of himself that just reads that with a generated video real time. Go through the entire interview process where it's not even you that doesn't have to know anything.
Well, even the move to the remote world, where a lot of jobs, I guess we are a little focused in the tech industry, but a lot of jobs in the tech industry are now remote. I've had it happen multiple times where the person you are interviewing is not the actual person. It is a different person. And then the person who shows up for you interview, you said, this is an incredible candidate. I want to hire you. You hired them. Day one, someone else shows up.
What? This has happened?
Yes, this has happened. Now, first off, this is kind of
That is
almost
insane.
completely accepted in the contracting world where you're working with a contracting agency. And usually in a land where English is not their first language, the person they put on the phone with you, you tell them, look, I'd like to interview the actual person I'll be working with. They put someone on who's their top person and is super fluent in the language that you are speaking. Then you like slowly uncover, and this, I mean, again, this is like almost just normal how it works. You slowly uncover that person isn't doing any of the work. There are 3 other people who usually do not speak the language. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, who are actually doing all the work being represented by this one person who they're often technical, but not doing any of the work. So that's kind of normal. But I've also had it where it's not a contractor. It is a full-time employee hired remotely. They often don't like to appear on camera during the interview, which, you know, it's a little weird to like tell someone like, oh, you must put your camera on if they're like, oh, I just, you know, would prefer to do it via voice. Plus there's all the like, you worry about, you know, the discrimination stuff that exists out there, you know. All right, well, yeah, I guess I don't have to like actually see you. Your voice should be enough. But then the person who shows up, different person.
That is absolutely wild. Absolutely wild.
The different person, I mean, that's not even AI, but then we go to like the full AI assist. That probably crosses the line. But what if we just go back to your resume? I take your resume, I feed it into one of these large language models, and I ask it to make the very best presentation of the material that you have here. Choose the perfect words. There's also the element that a lot of jobs go through this application scanning thing,
Right.
where
Those have been around since way pre-LLM.
They're where they're looking for certain keywords. Yeah. So does that cross the line if you're, you know, you've embellished a little bit, but it's
everyone
does
does
down
that
to the heart
time.
of it. It's true.
I don't think that light embellishing or like changing your resume to be, even if it is still based in truth, the best foot forward for a specific application. People have been doing that for forever. Again, way pre-LLM. But I think what you're kind of getting at is that there are these systems that a real person never actually looks at your resume. Just some algorithm decides, nah, this one's no good, and throws it in the trash, despite the fact that they could have been a really good fit. And of course, that's a lot of the difficulty with recruiting, whether you are a recruiter or like a hiring manager. It can be really difficult to find good people. Some good people fall through the cracks. Some not good people showed themselves off very well or outright lied on a resume and got presented forward to, like, say, the hiring manager. Now we can... Is this fighting back? Is this just making the entire process worse? I don't think it is. If we start saying, I, an applicant, will use to take the job description and company history, you know, and everything else, and LinkedIn profiles of all of the people involved in the interview process. Why not take all of that and then change my resume to still be my resume using my skills, maybe polishing one a little bit higher sheen than it would have otherwise been, but to make me look like the best candidate for this specific job to these specific people. If that's what someone was already going to be doing, why not help make that faster, especially if you're fighting against an unjust system where a person was never going to look at your resume most of the time for most of these applications that you have to do anyways. It's more than a meme. It's just a sad reality that most people are having to apply to hundreds of jobs. This isn't go in and shake their hand and you've got a job at the end of the day. This is, I have to log into, Workday again to make another new profile to manually enter in all the information that I have in my resume, which you made me upload anyways, but I still have to enter everything manually in again for a company that wouldn't have even looked at my resume anyways, even if they were actually hiring someone external, which often they're not. They know who they were going to get internally and legally had to post it to the public anyways. Why not take this incredibly frustrating process and let the people who are doing the applying, make it easier on them? I don't want to, if I'm applying to jobs, apply to 100, hope that 50 of them are a real job, hope that 5 of them actually get seen by a real person. That is so disheartening. Why not instead say, here's my resume and my set of skills. Please, thing that I bought or coded or have access to, whatever, please apply to 8,000 jobs for me. And then it's AI systems fighting other AI systems. And if that makes recruiters sad, great. Then, hey, recruiters, do your actual job. Call up people and find out if someone actually has the skills that you need.
So polishing your resume, that doesn't cross the line. What about the cover letter? That personal note that you add on where you've...
Listeners, I just rolled my eyes so hard I almost detached my retinas.
It was very noticeable.
Oh, boy. I'm going to take that question and put it right back to you. Hunter, when's the last time you wrote a real cover letter?
I don't think I ever have.
Yeah.
I had a generic one for a while, where you just change the company name. And so I remember having a generic one.
Brackets,
and I don't...
company name and all kinds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I do think it's a great if I was applying for jobs today, I would definitely look to make the best cover letter ever, because that's the personal touch. And I know, as someone who has interviewed a lot of people, and you notice when a cover letter gets attached to a resume, because I just suggest the majority do not have a cover letter.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference in selecting who are you going to interview.
Shouldn't anymore, because those are all coming from ChatGPT. So to answer your question, I have attached something to the cover letter portion of an application, but all I would ever put is, it is my understanding nobody actually reads these. If you, a real person, are reading this and want a cover letter, I will happily make one requested of me. And not once ever has anyone said, yeah, no, I saw this, that was cute, please go ahead and actually give me a cover letter. Never. Never, ever, ever.
I think I had the request once. I think it was from Amazon. They wanted this letter about how I've lived up to their personal. They have these things. Yeah. And I didn't write the first time, and they came back because I don't know. It was giant essay. I'm not writing a giant essay. They came back and asked for it. But I was just thinking today, maybe even it's a red flag if you didn't use ChatGPT to write a cover letter, because it's going to be better than the one that you write anyways.
Yeah. Right. So the article that we're sort of alluding to here, there's one that said that about 50% of job applicants are using Gen AI tools like ChatGPT and so on to aid in crafting cover letters and resumes and fill out applications and so on. And the thesis statement of it is that this is leading to a saturation of low quality applications in a tight job market. I can absolutely see how, as you were describing earlier, someone who is utterly unqualified could fill everything out in a way that makes them appear qualified, and it makes it harder to sift through the junk to find the real and good applicants. Absolutely understand that. I have zero empathy for the recruiters because of my disillusion with this entire process. Sorry, recruiters listening to this. But yeah, that's going to come back to bite me later.
Hunter has some empathy for you.
Right. That is, I just made my entire job search harder for the rest of my career.
That was Daniel Bishop speaking.
Yeah, no, that was ChatGPT. I was just reading a script. So I do think that everyone's using those. And just like I've said multiple times before, that this is a tool that we all need to get used to and be using. If you are not using that tool, you are another visual gag for the listeners. I have my arm behind my back. It's as though you have one arm tied behind your back. You should be using these tools. It's the same reason why you would use spell check and the Microsoft Word grammar checkers, or not even Microsoft Word. I think it's Grammarly. Is that the name of the website that you can get a plugin that'll tell you?
I love Grammarly. I have the annual subscription. Use it multiple times every day because apparently I have horrible grammar.
Now, why not use a large language model for that?
Well,
I think the folks at Grammarly should be absolutely shaking in their boots, because I could just use a local large language model. I didn't pay anything for it. I've got it forever. Hook it up through whatever plugins that somebody else makes, also available for free, and just say, hey, fix my grammar as I go.
The average person is not going to run their own LLM.
That's true.
Grammarly has very good integration.
Yeah, ease of use. is a product
is
in
everywhere
itself.
you're talking, and it's quick, and I've been using it for years now. That said, I'm definitely not long Grammarly because we see Microsoft and Apple integrating that functionality into their next OS releases. The previews we've seen of Apple Intelligence, it's a lot of that kind of thing. I don't think they're going to take out Grammarly in their next release, but the release after that, fast forward 2 years, Grammarly needs to start doing something different because it's going to come free with every operating system.
Now, does this mean that the incredibly valuable, always checked by me in Microsoft Word, Fleisch-Kincaid score is going the way of the dinosaur? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I know what you're talking about, and I don't think I've once checked my.
I used to check that on every paper that I wrote. I don't know why, just like, oh, I'm at a 11.2 for my grade of the, whatever it ended up being. It was a fun little metric, but like, yeah, now we can have something that will actually tell you, hey, here's the AP Press style guidelines that you just violated, and here's 3 recommendations on how to make it more in line with that. A friend of mine was working on a tool that would, using whatever sources that you've kind of loaded up in your tabs or specified as like, this is what I'm actually pulling from, help you write a bibliography, both in terms of like the format that it's supposed to be in, but automatically add citations as you go through and say like, oh, this point that you're talking about, I think it comes from this part of this paper. That's awesome. I realize we've gotten a little bit away from the job hunt thing here. And right, so the point is empathy for recruiters otherwise ignored. I do think that the entire application process it was already an amount of broken. Now it is, the wheels have completely come off. This thing is skidding on fire sideways to a stop over a ledge where it's going to fall into a gully and then explode. I am a little bit terrified for the next set of recruiting that I do, because maybe it's not the person that I think I'm hiring. Maybe it's not a real applicant who knows anything. Maybe it wasn't even a person in the first place. And I don't know what to do about that. Do we get rid of all the initial interviews and be like, here's a take home, and then meet me in person at this undisclosed location? I'll give it to you half an hour ahead of time, and you need to give me a 30-minute presentation?
I think it has to be done.
Meet me down at the docks. I'll be the guy with the big trench coat on, and give me a presentation on LLMs.
Because we can't give you a take home that you can literally you can take the zip file that I email you and just literally drag it onto Claude and say, create a Jupyter notebook that I can submit back. That used to be one of our take home assignments at a previous thing.
Here's some data, make some cool with it.
That's kind of worthless. And then, make a presentation. Not terribly difficult.
I'm actually going to fight back about that being worthless. You know why? Because we can take that same data and do that ourselves first, so that we can see what would Claude, like, okay, I'm going to take that zip data, I'm going to put it in Claude, I'm going to put it into OpenAI, and I'm going to use Mixtral, or, one of, like, here's 3 or 4 of the top LLM approaches. What do they do and what do they have in common? Now that I see what that take home looks like, I can now, as a human, filter through and say, what doesn't look like that?
Yeah. I think my approach would be, if I was designing a new interview, I keep the take home, but most of my take homes are open book. It's open book, OpenAI. Like, use whatever you want. Sure. I don't care. Drag the zip onto Claude and send me back the results. Do whatever you want. I am not putting any restrictions on it, because I'm just really, I need to like adjust what I'm evaluating there. And it's a lower bar than it was before, but can you accomplish this task competently? And do you understand the output? We're going to have a conversation about the output. I don't care. Fine. Have Claude Eli 5 the entire thing to you and recite it back to me and memorize that. And so when we have our conversation, you recite it back. Fine. But you got the work done and you were able to communicate about it. Again, it's a slightly lower bar, but it's still a bar and probably an important one. The question is, do you now have to have some real-time component in person in order to truly evaluate someone?
Maybe. And like I say maybe, my gut feeling is yes. I feel like I'd want to be able to see a person, be like, okay, I need to see your driver's license. It says that you don't need corrective lenses. What are those glasses that you're wearing there? And you can almost see the code scrolling by in their vision. I do think that we need to get to that sort of point if you want to be able to verify a person in real life is not using large language models, AI, anything, whatever you want to call it. If you want to say, we put you in a Faraday cage, we patted you down, you have no,
Yes!
and you have no computing devices on you.
No, you've got a nude, no clothes, because who knows what's integrated, no
Just
electronics.
naked in a cell
We're gonna
somewhere.
shave you.
Yep. Right. You have to go in for an MRI
scan.
first to make sure that there's
no neural implants.
Yep. I'm just applied for a job at Wendy's, man.
No, this is the reality.
Yep. Yeah.
You will obey.
If you're going to have that sort of present or future, the real question becomes, does it matter? And you were sort of
It doesn't
alluding to
matter.
that. Yeah. If you can get the job done.
Right. Why do you care?
Good.
You, as a company, we had a need. We needed more of this type of work done. If more of this type of work is getting done, success, the how, and whether it's to what degree it's a real human doing it, we shouldn't.
Who cares?
Really care.
But I don't want to be paying money to. It's a person who's bringing the value to the company,
Yes.
ain't they? Even if that person is asleep in the next room while
And if you can do it with
something's
the
hitting
program,
continue
do it with the
on their
program.
ChatGPT thing, whatever.
I think the thing that might shift is so after you get hired, you're usually, whether you are officially told this or not, there is a probationary period where you are evaluating someone.
Yeah.
And I think that perhaps becomes a little bit more like we're lowering the hiring bar a little bit. And really, it's the same as the old one. It's just technology has made it easier to cross that.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're going to put more emphasis now on, and this could be, I think it would be best if you could be very transparent about this, is that those first 30, 90 days, we want to make sure that you're hitting your marks, and an expectation that you can ramp up faster because of all this new technology. Great, we have all this new technology now. You can, very quickly start making a meaningful contribution to the company. And if you aren't, that's going to be a challenge. Now, you never want to hear that, I guess, as a candidate, because it's a big pain and to move jobs. If you tell me, hey, look, I'm going to be staring at you for the first 30 days. You mess up once, you're out of here, pal. And then you're going to have to go through this whole process again. I don't want to do that. But I think that period has to shift. We need to pay more attention to, once we're hired, that we're getting the result. And to
Getting the result,
possible,
good culture
doesn't
fit,
matter.
a lot of the things that you couldn't really test for in a take-home. To get real specific here, so Hunter and I were talking about a zip file. That zip file had, at least at the last job that we worked at together, a bunch of classification data. So here are news articles and what that news article would be classified as. There's a lot of variations on this theme, but like in the machine learning world, specifically for NLP, all of my take-homes have looked like this, where here's a bunch of data, usually for classification. Way back in the day, it was like, give us part of speech tagging. That's not really a thing that we do anymore. It's, what is this news article supposed to be? What is this tweet? Was that a positive or negative one? We don't really do too much sentiment either. It's mostly like classification tasks. So here's 5,000 whatever news articles, and it's in one of 11 different categories. Please come up with a system that will do pretty good at that. And then generally what you see, especially from like more junior employees, is here's just a Python notebook. For those of you not in the know, imagine a bunch of like individual little pieces of code that are from top to bottom. I'm going to run this one. Now that kind of stores its intermediate output. Now I run this one. Now I run this one, instead of like a program that just runs the whole thing. So I make this notebook of a bunch of little cells of Python code, Python code, Python code. Here it makes a table. Here it makes a couple of cute little graphs. Here's a cell where I say, and here's what my next steps would be. And that's like kind of the first pass. And then the second pass is I used some fancier methods, or I went into sort of a deeper analysis of the data, or I did some error correcting. And there's like different levels of competency that you can see there. If we have that kind of data, that is something that I think we can easily put through like a ChatGPT. But that's not the whole job. The whole job involves making those models, working with QA, and working with the software engineers who are going to have this be part of a larger ecosystem of data. For really junior employees, you don't need to worry too much more beyond, I made a model. But really, in most people's circumstances in this very specific field that I'm in, it isn't just, did you write some code that did a thing? That code has to be part of a larger ecosystem that you can't give somebody access to in just a take home. It has to be, can I work well with my manager? Am I going to have, productive one-on-ones? Is this something, company culture, that I can fit into? I know company culture might make people roll their eyes, but if you've ever worked with someone that you loathed working with, that's company culture. That's what I mean, is you have to be able to work with people, and all the ChatGPT in the world isn't going to make you a less terrible person to be on calls with if you're a terrible person. So that's why we need these probationary periods like you're describing. Maybe it becomes more frequent that we see the wrong person get hired for a job. But I think as soon as someone got their foot through the door, they'll realize inevitable. It's not all the way in. They will be filtered out.
That's the area where
you can't fake it forever.
As employers, we need to increase our skill set in detecting that during that sort of first month, that probationary period, and making sure that this is the person that I interviewed.
Maybe we do like more NDAs and more, here's 3 days of you like shadowing someone and doing the job with them sort of thing.
Interview processes are already so long.
The whole thing stinks so badly. I don't know what the solution is. The thing I just said ain't it though.
I think it's faster interviews. We accept that AI exists. We optimize the process for an AI world, and we hire faster. But then we evaluate, and we learn from that evaluation. Perhaps there are things that we should be thinking about during the process that we aren't.
I just thought of something. So just like we could take, as the recruiters or as the hiring managers, say, here is the sample data or the setup or whatever to like what a take-home test would be, and then run that through various AIs to have it just do it for us. Why not also have a control variable hiree where you take someone probably inside the company so that you're not wasting just some rando's time, and be like, hey, Ethel in accounting, you've heard of computers, right? Yeah. Use every AI tool at your disposal, do this take home, and see how good someone where they don't have any technical competency could do. That can give you a baseline.
I think I'm suggesting that there will be a minimal difference between that baseline and if there's not now, there very soon will be a minimal difference between the baseline and the best candidate.
I'd like to think there's some sort of je ne sais quoi about humans where
you keep thinking
where you really can show that you are self-aware, that you are.
I've accepted that the AI overlords are here, and I'm just waiting for that universal basic income check to start coming in, so that I don't have to apply to any more jobs.
I'm all right with that too.
Well, if you didn't know, you've been listening to episode 29 of They Might Be Self-Aware. Once again, I am Hunter Powers, and who are you? I've forgotten.
Well, on my resume it says Daniel Bishop. This whole time you've actually been speaking to Daniel Bishop.
Whew. I was
supposedly. We'll see what I look like in person. Glad to be on the team, Hunter.
If you haven't already, maybe hit that subscribe button. You want another episode? We're only going to give it to you if you hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, no more episodes for you. You're out. You're off the team. And where would you find these episodes? On pretty much every major podcasting platform, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, whatever podcast player you are using. Most likely you will find it there if you go into the search. You can listen to us whatever way you wish.
There's probably some sort of rating capability in whatever podcast app. Maybe some stars or thumbs.
Features.
I've never seen more than one thumb that you can give thumb up. For like movies, 2 thumbs up.
It's true.
Any electronic feedback system that's like, did you like this? Thumb up or thumb down? I've never seen 2 thumbs up.
And in the world of AI, having 2 thumbs is actually way more common than you would think if you've played with any of the image generators.
You know what? The sky's the limit for the number of thumbs that you could give us, especially if you use AI.
Whoever gives us the most thumbs may or may not receive a prize. And with that, until next time.
They might be self-aware.